bass thrummed through my chest like a second heartbeat, mixing with the vodka cranberry I'd already finished and the terrible decision I was about to make. Nina's eyes were gleaming with that particular brand of mischief that had gotten us into trouble since college, her perfectly manicured finger pointing across the crowded bar. "That one," she said, her voice barely audible over the pulsing music. "The one in the corner booth. Black shirt, watching everything like he owns the place." I followed her gaze through the haze of cigarette smoke and dim lighting. The bar, a sleek underground place called Onyx that had opened last month in the warehouse district, was packed with the usual Friday night crowd. Young professionals pretending to be dangerous, actual dangerous people pretending to be respectable, and people like me, 28, and supposedly mature enough to know better than to play truth or dare with my best friend after 3 drinks. He sat alone in the VIP section, separated from the rest of us by a velvet rope that might as well have been a brick wall. The lighting was different there, softer, more deliberate, casting shadows that made it impossible to see his face clearly. But I could feel his presence from across the room. The way people instinctively gave that corner a wide berth, the way the bartenders kept glancing over, attentive but wary. The way 2 men in dark suits flanked the entrance to that section, their stance too alert to be mere club security. "Nina, that's insane," I said, taking another sip of my fresh drink. The vodka was cheap, burning my throat in a way that made me feel alive and reckless. "I'm not going to just walk up to some random guy and kiss him." "That's literally the dare, Clara." She leaned closer, her perfume mixing with the scent of spilled beer and expensive cologne that permeated the air. "You said you wanted to do something wild before you turned 29 next month. You said you were tired of playing it safe." I had said that. Last week, after my boss had passed me over for another promotion, after my mother had called to ask again when I was going to settle down, after I'd realized I'd spent the last 3 years in a relationship that had ended not with fireworks, but with a mutual shrug and a divided IKEA bookshelf. I'd said I wanted to feel something again, wanted to remember what it was like to be impulsive, to be the girl who used to skinny dip in the ocean at midnight and drive to concerts in cities 4 hours away on a Tuesday. "I meant like skydiving," I protested weakly, "or getting a tattoo." "Boring." Nina dismissed my objections with a wave of her hand. "This is perfect. Look at him. He's exactly the kind of man you need to kiss. Dangerous. Mysterious. Probably has a motorcycle and a tragic past. From what I could see, he was attractive in that way that made my stomach flip. Broad shoulders filling out that black shirt, dark hair styled with casual precision, strong hands wrapped around a glass of what looked like whiskey. But it was more than his appearance. It was the way he commanded the space around him, the invisible force field of authority that made everyone else seem like extras in his movie. "He's probably married," I said, grasping for excuses. "Or gay. Or a serial killer." Only one way to find out. Nina's grin was absolutely wicked. "Come on, Clara. When was the last time you did something completely insane? When was the last time you felt your heart actually race?" She had a point. My life had become a predictable loop of work, Netflix, occasional dates with men who were perfectly nice and perfectly forgettable. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd felt genuine adrenaline, the kind that made your hands shake and your breath catch. The man shifted slightly, and for just a moment the light caught his face. Sharp jawline, the shadow of stubble, eyes so dark they looked black even from this distance. He was looking directly at me. My heart lurched. Had he heard us? No, that was impossible over the music. But the intensity of his gaze made me feel exposed, like he could see through the careful armor I'd built over the years of professional disappointments and romantic failures. "He's watching you," Nina whispered, delighted. "Oh my God, Clara, he's totally watching you. That's a sign. The universe is telling you to go for it." "The universe is telling me I've had too much to drink," I muttered, but I couldn't look away from him. There was something magnetic about his attention, something that made me want to either run away or move closer. I couldn't tell which impulse was stronger. Nina pressed her advantage. Think about it. In 10 years, what story do you want to tell? That you played it safe and went home alone? Or that you walked up to the most dangerous-looking man in the bar and kissed him like you meant it? I drained the rest of my drink, the alcohol burning away the last of my common sense. Maybe it was the vodka. Maybe it was the way he was still looking at me, his expression unreadable but somehow inviting. Maybe it was the desperate need to prove to myself that I wasn't completely dead inside, that I could still do something wild and reckless and completely unlike the responsible, boring person I'd become. Fine, I heard myself say. But you're buying the next round when I get slapped. Nina squealed and clapped her hands. Yes, okay, go. Go now before you chicken out. I stood up, my legs unsteady in heels I wasn't used to wearing. The black dress I'd chosen felt too tight, too revealing, perfect for the old Clara but foreign to the woman I'd become. I could feel Nina watching me, could feel the weight of this stupid dare pressing against my chest. The walk across the bar felt like crossing a battlefield. People moved around me in slow motion, their conversations a dull roar beneath the music. The 2 security guards at the velvet rope straightened as I approached, their expressions hardening. VIP section only, the taller one said, his accent thick and Eastern European. Russian, maybe. His hand moved subtly to his side, where I was suddenly certain he had a weapon. I need to speak to him. I pointed past them, proud that my voice didn't shake. Just for a minute. The guards exchanged a glance, some wordless communication passing between them. The shorter one, who had a scar running through his left eyebrow, spoke into a small radio on his collar. I couldn't hear what he said, but a moment later, he nodded and stepped aside. 2 minutes, he said. It wasn't a suggestion. I ducked under the velvet rope, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The VIP section was quieter, the music muffled by some acoustic magic I didn't understand. It smelled different here too, expensive cologne and cigar smoke and something else, something that made my instincts scream danger. He watched me approach, absolutely still. No welcoming smile, no confusion about why a stranger was walking toward him. Just that intense, unwavering attention that made me feel like prey stepping into a predator's den. I stopped at the edge of his booth, suddenly hyper-aware of every detail. The way his shirt sleeves were rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and traced with ink, I couldn't quite make out in the dim light. The way his fingers drummed once, twice against his whiskey glass, the only sign that he was anything other than completely relaxed. The way his dark eyes tracked every movement I made, cataloging and assessing. "Can I help you?" His voice was deep, accented, each word precise and controlled. Italian, I thought, or maybe Portuguese. It wrapped around my spine like silk and steel. This was insane. This was the stupidest thing I'd ever done. I should apologize, make an excuse, run back to Nina and admit defeat. Instead, I leaned down, braced one hand on the table, and kissed him. For a split second, he went absolutely rigid, every muscle in his body tensing. I'd surprised him, I realized with a thrill of triumph. This man who looked like nothing could catch him off guard. I'd managed to shock. Then his hand came up to cup the back of my head, strong fingers tangling in my hair, and he was kissing me back. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was the kind of kiss that made the rest of the bar disappear, that made my knees weak and my brain shut down completely. He tasted like whiskey and mint and something darker, something dangerous that I should have recognized as a warning. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer, and I went willingly, helplessly, drowning in sensation. When we finally broke apart, I was breathing hard, my lips tingling, my whole body humming with adrenaline and desire and absolute terror at what I'd just done. He looked at me differently now. Not with surprise, but with something that made my stomach flip. Interest. Dark, intense, focused interest that felt like being caught in a spotlight. "What's your name?" he asked, his thumb stroking the side of my face in a gesture that should have been tender, but felt possessive. "Clara," I whispered, before my brain could catch up and tell me that giving this stranger my name was probably a terrible idea. "Clara." He repeated it like he was tasting it, memorizing it. "I'm Elio." "Nice to meet you," I said stupidly, because what else do you say to a man you just kissed on a dare? My hand was still on the table, and I started to pull back, to retreat to safety. His hand closed around my wrist. Not painful, but absolutely inescapable. "Where are you going?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was steel underneath. "We're not finished." "I should get back to my friend," I managed, tugging slightly against his grip. He didn't let go. "It was nice meeting you. Sit down, Clara." It wasn't a request. The authority in his voice made me sit before I'd consciously decided to comply, sliding into the booth across from him. He released my wrist but kept his hand on the table between us, fingers spread, claiming the space. "That was quite an introduction," he said, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. It should have made him look friendlier. It didn't. "Is this something you do often? Kiss strange men in bars?" "No." I forced myself to meet his eyes, even though every instinct told me to look away, to submit. "It was a dare." His smile widened slightly. "A dare. And what did you win?" "Pride," I said, then felt immediately stupid. "And my friend buys the next round." "Brave." He lifted his whiskey glass, took a slow sip, never breaking eye contact. "Foolish, but brave. Do you know who I am?" The question sent ice down my spine. The way he asked it, like it was important, like I should know, like everyone should know. "Should I?" I asked carefully. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. Or appreciation. Most people in this bar would tell you, "I'm someone you don't want to kiss on a dare." Why not? He leaned forward slightly, and I caught his scent, something expensive and masculine that made my head spin. "Because I don't let go of things that interest me." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I didn't fully understand but felt in my bones. This was a warning, a threat wrapped in velvet. I should have stood up, should have thanked him for being a good sport and walked away. But I couldn't move, pinned by his gaze and my own stupid, reckless curiosity. What if I'm not that interesting? I tried to keep my tone light, flirtatious even, though my hands were shaking under the table. "You walked across this bar," he said slowly, past my security, into my space, and kissed me without asking permission. "You either have a death wish, or you're the most interesting woman I've met in years." The way he said it made me realize with cold clarity exactly how much danger I was in. This wasn't some game. This wasn't a romantic story about a mysterious stranger. This was real, and I had just done something incredibly stupid. "I should go," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "You should." He agreed, but his posture didn't change, didn't suggest he was going to let me leave. "But you won't, not yet, because you feel it too." "Feel what?" "This." He gestured between us, his hand moving through the space like he was tracing an invisible connection. "You're not scared enough to run. Not yet. And that fascinates me even more than the kiss." He was right, and that terrified me. I should have been running. Should have been apologizing and backing away. But part of me, some reckless part I thought I'd buried years ago, wanted to stay. Wanted to see what would happen next. Wanted to feel this alive for just a little longer. The scarred security guard appeared at the edge of the booth, leaning down to whisper something in Elio's ear. Elio's expression didn't change, but he nodded once, sharp and final. "I have business to attend to," he said, his attention returning to me. "But we're not finished, Clara. Give me your phone." "What?" "Your phone." He held out his hand, palm up, expectant. When I hesitated, he added softly, "Please." I pulled my phone from my purse with trembling fingers and placed it in his hand. He did something quickly, his fingers flying over the screen, then handed it back. When I looked, he'd added himself as a contact. Just Elio. No last name. But his photo was there, a professional shot that somehow made him look even more dangerous than he did in person. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. Again, not a question. A statement of fact. What if I don't answer? That smile again, the one that didn't reach his eyes. "You will." He stood then, and I realized how tall he was, how his presence seemed to fill the entire space. He buttoned his suit jacket with practiced ease, adjusted his cuffs. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, the actions of a man who was always in command. "Go back to your friend," he said, looking down at me with that dark, intense gaze. "And next time you want to kiss a dangerous man, Clara, make sure you're ready for the consequences." Then he was gone, moving through the bar with his security flanking him, people parting automatically to let him pass. I watched him leave, my heart still racing, my lips still tingling from our kiss. When I finally made my way back to Nina on unsteady legs, she grabbed my arm with both hands, her eyes wide. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, Clara. Do you know who that was?" The ice in my stomach solidified. "Tell me." "That's Elio Alves." She said the name like it should mean something. When I stared at her blankly, she continued, her voice dropping to a terrified whisper. "He runs the entire harbor district. Import, export, everything that comes through this city's ports. People say he's connected to the Cobalt Collective. Clara, you just kissed a Mafia boss." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Elio's hand in my hair, tasted whiskey and danger on his lips, heard his voice promising that we weren't finished. By the time weak morning light filtered through my apartment curtains, I'd convinced myself it had all been some vodka-fueled fever dream. Until my phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. The number wasn't saved, but I knew. Somehow I knew. "Hello?" My voice came out rough from lack of sleep. "Clara." Just my name, but the way he said it made my stomach flip. "Did you sleep well?" "How did you get my number?" I sat up in bed, pulling my knees to my chest. "I didn't give it to you." "I put my number in your phone," he replied calmly, like I was being deliberately obtuse. "It's a very simple thing to see the phone number when you do that." "Right, of course." I felt stupid for asking. "What do you want?" "Have lunch with me." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I wasn't asking, Clara." His tone remained pleasant, conversational even, but steel ran underneath. 1 p.m. I'll send a car. "Elio, I can't just..." "You can, and you will. Unless you want me to come to your office instead. 3rd floor of the Morton Building. Creative Solutions Marketing, correct? I imagine your co-workers would find my visit quite interesting." Ice flooded my veins. "How do you know where I work?" "I make it my business to know about people who interest me. Wear the blue dress you have in your closet, the one with the white buttons. It suits you." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in mounting horror. He knew where I worked. He knew what was in my closet. How? Had he had someone follow me home last night? Had they been watching me this morning? I stumbled to my window, pulling back the curtain to scan the street below. My apartment was in a relatively safe neighborhood, the kind of place where young professionals lived in overpriced one-bedrooms and complained about rent. Nothing looked unusual. A few cars parked along the curb, a woman walking her dog, a delivery truck idling at the corner. But now I saw everything through a different lens. The dark sedan 2 spots down from my building, was someone sitting in the driver's seat? The man across the street in the coffee shop window. Was he looking up at my apartment? Every shadow held potential surveillance, every stranger a possible threat. My phone buzzed with a text, another unknown number. The blue dress, 1 p.m. Don't make me come get you. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. This was insane. I should call the police, tell them a dangerous man was stalking me, threatening me. But even as the thought formed, I dismissed it. Nina's terrified whisper echoed in my mind. He runs the entire harbor district. The police were probably on his payroll. And even if they weren't, what could I tell them? That a man I'd kissed on a dare wanted to take me to lunch? I looked at the blue dress hanging in my closet, the one I'd bought on sale 3 months ago and never worn because it felt too nice for my ordinary life. The fact that he knew it was there made my skin crawl, and against all logic, sent a thrill of dark excitement through me. Nina called at 10:30. "Are you alive? You didn't text me when you got home and I've been freaking out all night." "I'm alive," I confirmed, putting her on speaker while I stared at my closet. "But Nina, this is bad, really bad." I told her about the phone call, about how he knew where I worked and what was in my closet. Each detail I recounted made it more real, more terrifying. "Jesus, Clara." Nina's voice was tight with fear. "You need to go to the police." "And tell them what? That a man I kissed wants to buy me lunch? That a crime boss is stalking you?" "We don't actually know that he's a crime boss," I said weakly. "Maybe he's just a successful businessman. Successful businessmen don't have armed security at bars. They don't know what's in your closet." She paused. "Are you seriously considering going to this lunch?" Was I? The rational part of my brain was screaming, no, absolutely not. Run in the opposite direction. But there was another part, smaller but insistent, that remembered the way Elio had looked at me. Like I was fascinating. Like I was important. When was the last time anyone had looked at me that way? "I think I have to," I said finally. "If I don't show up, he said he'd come to my office. Nina, I can't have him show up at my work. I'll lose my job." "You could die, Clara. You could actually die." "He's not going to kill me over lunch." I tried to sound more confident than I felt. "Maybe if I go, talk to him, explain that last night was just a stupid dare, he'll lose interest and leave me alone. Or maybe he'll put you in the trunk of a car and no one will ever see you again." "You're not helping." Nina sighed, long and heavy. "Promise me you'll text me every 30 minutes and share your location with me, and if you don't respond within 10 minutes, I'm calling the police and telling them everything." Deal. At 12:45, I stood in front of my mirror wearing the blue dress, minimal makeup, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. I looked professional, unthreatening, like someone having a normal business lunch. I definitely didn't look like someone walking into a lion's den wearing steak-flavored perfume. The car arrived at exactly 1 p.m., a sleek black sedan with tinted windows that pulled up directly in front of my building. The driver got out, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a face that had seen things I couldn't imagine. He opened the back door without a word. I hesitated on the sidewalk, my survival instincts finally kicking in. This was my last chance to run, to go back upstairs and lock my door, and pretend none of this had ever happened. The driver checked his watch. "Mr. Alves doesn't like to be kept waiting, miss." The unspoken threat in those words propelled me forward. I slid into the back seat, soft leather enveloping me, the door closing with a final sounding click. No child locks engaged. I checked immediately, but somehow that small freedom didn't make me feel any better. We drove in silence through the city, past the business district where I worked, past the trendy restaurants where I sometimes had brunch with Nina, into a part of town I'd never had reason to visit. The buildings here were older, grittier, converted warehouses and industrial spaces that had been gentrified into something that pretended to be respectable, but couldn't quite hide its rough edges. The car pulled up to a restaurant I didn't recognize. No sign outside, just a red door with a brass number. The kind of place you had to know about to find. The driver opened my door. "Third floor. He's expecting you." Inside, the restaurant was beautiful in an understated way. Dark wood, white tablecloths, the soft murmur of quiet conversations. A hostess in a black dress looked up as I entered, smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Ms. Clara," she said, my name on her lips sending another chill through me. "This way, please." She led me up a narrow staircase, past the second floor where I could hear the gentle clink of silverware and wine glasses, to the third floor. A private dining room, I realized as she opened the door. Just one table, set for two, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the harbor. Elio stood as I entered, and I was struck again by his presence, the way he seemed to command space just by existing. He wore a charcoal suit today, perfectly tailored, no tie, the top two buttons of his white shirt undone. Professional but relaxed, the costume of a legitimate businessman. "Clara," he smiled, genuinely pleased to see me. "Thank you for coming." Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than I intended, fear making me brave. His smile didn't falter. "There's always a choice. You could have stayed home, called the police, run away. But you're here. That tells me something. It tells you I don't want you showing up at my office. It tells me you're curious." He pulled out my chair, waited for me to sit. When I didn't move, he added softly, "Please, I promise you're safe with me." I wanted to argue that I didn't feel safe, that everything about this situation screamed danger. But I also wanted to prove I wasn't completely terrified, that I still had some control. So I sat, let him push my chair in with practiced courtesy. He took the seat across from me, poured wine from a bottle that probably cost more than my rent. "You look lovely. The blue suits you." "How did you know what was in my closet?" I demanded, ignoring the wine he'd poured for me. "Are you having me watched? Do you have cameras in my apartment?" Nothing so invasive. He seemed amused by my alarm. "You posted a photo on social media 3 months ago. You were at a store, trying on dresses, asking your followers which one you should buy. The blue dress won by a significant margin. I simply assumed you'd purchased it." I stared at him, torn between relief that he didn't have actual cameras in my home and horror that he'd gone through my social media history. That's still creepy. "Perhaps." He took a sip of his wine, completely unrepentant. "But effective. I wanted you to feel beautiful today. That dress makes you beautiful." "I don't understand what you want from me." "Lunch." He gestured to the table. "Conversation, to get to know you better." "Why?" "Because you interest me." He said it like it was obvious, simple. "You walked up to me last night with your heart pounding so hard I could see your pulse in your throat, terrified but determined. You kissed me like you were claiming me, not the other way around. And then you sat in my booth and held my gaze when most people can't maintain eye contact with me for more than a few seconds. I find that fascinating." A waiter appeared, silent and efficient, placing plates in front of us. Some kind of fish, prepared beautifully, probably delicious. I couldn't imagine eating a single bite. "I told you it was a dare," I said, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. My friend Nina, she pointed you out, and I'd had too much to drink and it was stupid. That's all it was. Was it? He cut into his fish with precise movements. Then why haven't you asked me to leave you alone? Why haven't you blocked my number, filed a restraining order, gone to the police? Because I was terrified of what he might do. Because part of me, some small reckless part, wasn't ready for this to be over. Because no one had made me feel this alive in years, even if the feeling came wrapped in fear. I'm asking you now, I said quietly. Please leave me alone. Last night was a mistake. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression, but I'm not interested in whatever this is. Elio set down his fork, giving me his full attention. The intensity of his focus made me feel stripped bare, like he could see through every lie I was telling, every defense I was building. You're lying, he said simply. Your words say one thing, but your body says another. You're scared, yes, but you're also curious, drawn in. You want to know what happens next, even though you know you shouldn't. That doesn't mean I'm going to make you an offer, Clara. One I very rarely make. He leaned forward slightly. I'll give you one chance to walk away, right now. You can stand up, leave this restaurant, block my number, and I will not contact you again. My men will stop watching you. You'll go back to your normal life, your safe little existence, and in a few weeks this will feel like a strange dream you once had. Hope and disappointment warred in my chest. Really? Really. But if you stay, his voice dropped lower, more intimate. If you finish this lunch with me, then you're making a choice. You're choosing to see where this goes, to be part of my world, even temporarily. And I don't let go easily, Clara. Once you're in, you're in. Do you understand? I understood. This was the moment. The fork in the road. The choice that would define everything that came after. Common sense demanded I stand up, walk out, never look back. This man was dangerous, possibly criminal, definitely far outside my safe, ordinary world. Every rational thought I had screamed at me to run, but I thought about my life, about my tiny apartment and my dead-end job and my string of forgettable dates with forgettable men, about how I'd felt last night, alive and reckless and entirely myself for the first time in years, about how Elio looked at me, really looked at me, like I was someone worth seeing. If I stay, I said slowly, what happens? We have lunch, we talk. I learn about you, you learn about me. And then we see what develops naturally, without pressure or expectation. And if at some point I want to stop, want to go back to my normal life? Something flickered in his eyes, too quick to read. We'll discuss that if it becomes relevant. But I think we both know that once you've had a taste of this, of feeling truly alive, going back will be harder than you imagine. He was right, and that terrified me more than anything else. I picked up my fork, cut a small piece of fish, brought it to my mouth. It was delicious, perfectly prepared, exactly as I'd expected. Elio's smile was slow, satisfied, like a predator that had just seen its prey walk willingly into the trap. Good, he said softly. Now, tell me about yourself, Clara. I want to know everything. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a fever dream I couldn't quite wake up from. Elio called every day, sometimes just to hear my voice, sometimes to summon me to another lunch, another dinner, another stolen hour in his world. I learned to recognize his driver's car, learned the route to that private restaurant with no sign, learned to dress in the clothes he seemed to prefer without him ever explicitly saying so. Nina thought I'd lost my mind. You're dating a criminal, she'd said, during our last coffee meetup, her voice tight with worry. Clara, this isn't some romantic movie. This is real life, and real criminals do real damage. We're not dating, I'd protested weakly. We're just spending time together. He sends a car for you. He takes you to private restaurants. He knows your schedule better than you do. That's dating, Clara. That's a relationship with a man who probably kills people. I hadn't known what to say to that because she was right. About all of it. But I also couldn't explain the way Elio made me feel. How his attention was like standing in sunlight after years in shadow. How he listened when I talked about my work frustrations, my complicated relationship with my mother, my dreams of maybe starting my own agency someday. How he made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything shifted. I was at my desk, pretending to work on a client presentation, while actually staring at my phone, waiting for Elio's daily call. It came at exactly 2:15, as it had for the past week. Clara. His voice was different today, tighter, distracted. I need you to do something for me. What is it? Come to my office. Now. I'm sending Dario. Elio, I'm at work. I can't just... Clara. The edge in his voice made me stop mid-sentence. Please, I need you. He'd never said that before. Never admitted to needing anything from anyone. The vulnerability in those 3 words terrified me more than any threat could have. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll be ready. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, grabbed my purse, and was waiting on the sidewalk when Dario pulled up in the familiar black sedan. He didn't speak during the drive, but I caught him glancing at me in the rearview mirror, his expression unreadable. We drove to the harbor district, past shipping containers and warehouses, to a building I'd never seen before. Nondescript gray concrete, no signs, no indication of what might be inside. Dario led me through a side entrance, up an industrial elevator, to a top-floor office that looked nothing like what I'd expected. The space was beautiful, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, modern furniture in shades of gray and navy, expensive art on the walls. It looked like the office of a legitimate businessman, which I suppose was exactly the point. Elio stood with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Portuguese to someone on the other end. His shoulders were tense, his free hand clenched into a fist at his side. When he heard me enter, he ended the call abruptly and turned. Thank you for coming. He crossed to me in 3 long strides, his hands coming up to frame my face. Before I could respond, he was kissing me, desperate and claiming, nothing like the controlled man I'd come to know. When he finally pulled back, I was breathless and confused. Elio, what's wrong? Come. He took my hand, led me deeper into the office, through a door I hadn't noticed. The next room was smaller, darker, with monitors covering one wall showing various security feeds. A man I didn't recognize sat at a desk, rapidly typing on multiple keyboards. Show her, Elio commanded, his voice flat. The man hesitated, glanced at me uncertainly. Boss, are you sure? Show her. One of the monitors flickered, the image changing to show Nina. My Nina, sitting in what looked like a coffee shop, laughing at something on her phone. The camera angle was wrong, too close, too intimate. Someone had been filming her without her knowledge. What is this? I turned to Elio, fear and anger warring in my chest. Are you having Nina followed? Not me. His hand tightened on mine. But someone is. Someone who wants to know who's important to me. And they've identified Nina as your best friend. The implications of that sank in slowly, like ice water through my veins. You're saying someone is watching her because of me? Because of us? Yes. I pulled my hand from his, suddenly needing distance. Who? Why? I have enemies, Clara. Men who would use anything they could against me, including people I care about. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. I thought I'd been careful. Thought no one knew about you yet. I was wrong. So what does that mean? My voice came out high, panicked. What are they going to do to Nina? Nothing, if I can help it. He moved back to the monitor, studying Nina's image with cold calculation. I've already assigned protection. She's being watched by my people now, to keep her safe from anyone else who might try to get to her. You can't just assign protection without her knowing. Elio, you're scaring her. You're making everything worse. Would you rather she be unprotected? Vulnerable? He turned to face me fully, his expression hard. This is my world, Clara. This is what it means to be connected to me. The people around you become targets. The full weight of what I'd done crashed over me. By accepting Elio's attention, by continuing to see him, I'd painted a target on Nina's back, on anyone I cared about. And I'd done it for what? Because he made me feel special? Because I'd been bored with my safe little life? This is insane. I backed toward the door. I can't do this. I can't put Nina at risk because of whatever this is between us. Clara? No. I held up a hand, stopping him. You said I could walk away if I wanted. You said we'd discuss it. I'm discussing it now. I want out. Elio's expression shifted, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. It's not that simple anymore. You promised. I said we could discuss it. I didn't say I'd let you go. He moved closer, slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. You're in too deep now, Clara. You know too much. You've been here to my office. You've met my people. Walking away isn't an option. Terror locked my throat. What are you saying? I'm saying that the moment you walked into that bar and kissed me, you became mine. Not temporarily. Not until you got bored or scared. Mine. His voice was soft but absolute. And I protect what's mine, even from themselves. That's insane. I tried to inject strength into my voice, but it came out shaky. You can't just keep me like some possession. Can I? He tilted his head, genuinely curious. What will you do, Clara? Go to the police? They're in my pocket. Run away? I'll find you. And while you're running, who's protecting Nina? Who's making sure your mother in Florida stays safe? Your sister in Seattle? My blood ran cold. You wouldn't. I wouldn't hurt them, no. But I can't speak for my enemies, the men who are currently very interested in why Elio Alves suddenly has a woman in his life after years of careful solitude. The men who would love nothing more than to take from me anything I value. He was boxing me in, cutting off every escape route. And the worst part was, he was right. The moment I'd chosen to stay at that first lunch, I'd set events in motion that couldn't be undone. So what? I whispered. I'm just supposed to what? Be your girlfriend? Pretend this is all normal? You're supposed to trust me to keep you safe. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with surprising gentleness. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know you're terrified. But I will protect you, Clara, and Nina, and everyone else you care about. You have my word. The word of a criminal. He smiled without humor. The word of a man who has never broken a promise in his life. Which do you think is worth more? I wanted to hate him, wanted to scream and fight and demand my freedom. But I also remembered the tenderness in his kiss, the way he listened when I talked, the vulnerability in his voice when he'd called and said he needed me. I don't understand any of this, I said, my voice breaking. Why me? What could you possibly want with someone like me? You're real. He said it simply, like it explained everything. Everyone in my world wants something. Money, power, protection, connection. They smile and bow and tell me what I want to hear because they're afraid or ambitious or both. But you kissed me on a dare, Clara. You looked at me and saw a man, not a resource to be exploited. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I'm not special, I protested weakly. You are to me. His hands framed my face again, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. And that's all that matters. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He ignored it at first, keeping his attention on me, but it rang again immediately. With a muttered curse, he answered. The conversation was in Portuguese again, but I didn't need to understand the words to hear the urgency. Elio's expression darkened, his jaw clenching as he listened. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold with controlled fury. He ended the call and turned to the man at the monitors. Get her home. Full security detail. No one gets near her. What's happening? I asked, new fear spiking through me. Someone just tried to grab Nina. His eyes met mine, and what I saw there made my blood freeze. She's safe. My people stopped it before anything happened, but this confirms what I suspected. Someone is moving against me, and they're using you to do it. The room spun. Nina. Someone had tried to take Nina because of me, because I'd been selfish and stupid and reckless. I need to see her. I grabbed Elio's arm. Please, I need to make sure she's okay. Absolutely not. You're going home, where I know you'll be safe. Dario will take you. Elio. This is not negotiable, Clara. His voice was iron, leaving no room for argument. Until I figure out who's behind this and eliminate the threat, you stay where I can protect you. Do you understand? I wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes stopped me. Real fear. For me. For Nina. For whatever dominoes were falling that I couldn't see. Okay, I whispered. He kissed me once more, fierce and claiming. I'll call you tonight. Don't open your door for anyone except Dario or me. Promise me. I promise. The drive back to my apartment was silent, my mind replaying everything that had just happened. Someone had tried to take Nina, because of me, because I'd kissed a dangerous man on a dare and then been too intrigued to walk away. When we reached my building, Dario walked me to my door, checked my apartment thoroughly before letting me inside. Lock the door behind me, he instructed. Don't let anyone in. We'll be watching. I locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, then slid down to sit on the floor with my back against it. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Nina. Clara, I need to talk to you now. Some men just tried to grab me at the coffee shop. My hands shaking, I called her. Oh my God, Clara. She was crying, her voice thick with tears and fear. These men. They came up to me, said they wanted to talk about you and Elio, and then they tried to pull me into a van. If these other guys hadn't shown up. I know. I interrupted, my own tears starting. Nina, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I should have listened to you. I should have... You need to end this, she said urgently. Whatever's going on with you and that man, you need to end it before someone gets hurt. I can't. The words tasted like defeat. He won't let me walk away, and even if he would, whoever tried to grab you, they already know about you. About us. Walking away won't keep you safe anymore. Nina was silent for a long moment. So what do? We trust that Elio will fix this. I wiped at my tears, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He said he'd protect us. The word of a criminal. I almost laughed at hearing my own words echoed back at me. The word of a man who's never broken a promise. Clara, listen to me. Nina's voice became very serious. If you're doing this, if you're really choosing to stay in his world, you need to be smart about it. You need to learn the rules, understand the game, because right now, you're just a pawn, and pawns get sacrificed first. She was right. I'd been passive, letting Elio move me around like a chess piece, too dazzled and frightened to think strategically. If I was stuck in this world, I needed to figure out how to survive it on my own terms. I will, I promised. I'll figure this out. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, listening to the sounds of the city outside, and made a decision. If I couldn't leave Elio's world, I would learn to navigate it. I would understand the threats, the players, the rules. I would stop being a victim and start being a participant, starting with finding out exactly who Elio Alves really was and what I'd truly gotten myself into by kissing him that night. The next morning, I woke to find a package outside my door. No return address, just my name in elegant script. Inside was a new phone, high-end and expensive, with a note in the same careful handwriting. Your old phone wasn't secure. Use this one. The only number saved is mine. I turned the sleek device over in my hands, admiring and resenting it in equal measure. Another way for Elio to control my communications, to know who I was talking to and when. But also, I had to admit, probably necessary if someone was actively targeting people in his life. The phone rang while I was still examining it. Elio, of course. Did you get my gift? His voice was warm, almost playful, like yesterday's crisis had never happened. You mean the surveillance device disguised as a phone? He laughed, genuinely amused. I prefer to think of it as a safety measure. Did you sleep well? Not really. I moved to my kitchen, started the coffee maker with one hand. I kept thinking about Nina, about what almost happened. She's safe. I have men watching her 24/7. No one will get near her. He paused. How are you feeling about everything? It was such a normal question, the kind a normal boyfriend might ask, that it caught me off guard. Honestly? Terrified, angry, confused. All reasonable reactions. Would you like some answers? Real ones this time? Yes. Have dinner with me tonight. Not at the restaurant. Somewhere more private. I'll answer any question you ask, completely honestly. No more games, no more secrets. I should have said no. Should have demanded answers immediately, over the phone, where I felt safer. But curiosity was a hook in my chest, pulling me toward him despite every warning sign. Where? My home. I'll send Dario at 7. Your home? The intimacy of that location made my stomach flip. Elio, I don't think... You said you wanted the truth, Clara. I'm offering it to you. But some truths require privacy, security, trust. Can you trust me for one evening? Could I? This man who had essentially trapped me in his world, who had people watching my best friend, who admitted to being dangerous, but also this man who had kept every promise he'd made, who looked at me like I was precious, whose word Nina claimed was worth more than any legal contract. Okay, I said, before I could overthink it. 7. And work was impossible to focus on. I moved through my day in a daze, pretending to care about client presentations and marketing strategies while my mind churned through possibilities. What would Elio's home look like? What truths was he preparing to tell me? Was I walking into another trap? Nina called during my lunch break, sounding remarkably calm for someone who'd nearly been kidnapped less than 24 hours ago. So I've been doing research, she announced without preamble. Nina, don't Nina me. If we're stuck in this, I want to know what we're dealing with. Do you know how hard it is to find actual information about Elio Alves? It's like he's a ghost. That's not reassuring. No public records, no social media, nothing. But I found some news articles about the Harbor District, about increased efficiency in shipping operations, about how certain business leaders have been streamlining operations. Elio's name comes up sometimes, always in the context of legitimate business. So, he's good at hiding the criminal stuff. Or there isn't any criminal stuff to hide. Nina's voice was thoughtful. I'm not saying he's a saint, Clara, but maybe he's not quite the Mafia boss we assumed. Maybe he's somewhere in between. He has armed guards. His enemies try to kidnap people. That's not exactly legitimate business. True, but it's also not. I don't know. It's not what I expected. The men who protected me yesterday, they were professional, courteous even. They made sure I got home safely, checked my apartment, gave me a number to call if I needed anything. They didn't feel like thugs, Clara. They felt like security. I didn't know what to do with that information. It would have been easier if Elio was purely a villain, if I could hate him cleanly and completely. But nothing about this situation was clean or simple. I'm having dinner with him tonight, I admitted. At his home. He's promised to answer my questions. Clara, I know it's probably stupid, but I need answers, Nina. I need to understand what I'm part of before I can figure out how to deal with it. She sighed. Text me every 30 minutes. And if you don't respond within 10, I'm calling those security guys he assigned me and telling them to come get you. Deal. At exactly 7, Dario pulled up outside my building. I'd agonized over what to wear, finally settling on jeans and a simple black sweater. Not trying too hard, but not completely casual either. The clothes of someone who was taking this seriously but wasn't surrendering to seduction. The drive took us out of the city proper, into the hills where the truly wealthy lived. We passed gates and long driveways, houses that were barely visible from the road. When we finally turned into a driveway, I understood why Elio valued privacy so highly. His home was stunning. Modern architecture that somehow felt warm, all natural stone and floor-to-ceiling windows, positioned to capture a breathtaking view of the city lights below. Not ostentatious, but undeniably expensive. The house of someone with refined taste and unlimited resources. Elio met me at the door himself, dressed casually in dark jeans and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. More relaxed than I'd ever seen him, almost approachable. Welcome. He stepped aside to let me enter. Thank you for coming. The interior was as beautiful as the exterior suggested. Open concept, minimal furniture, art that was probably worth more than my car on the walls. But it also felt lived in, comfortable. Books on the coffee table, a throw blanket draped over the back of the couch, a half-full mug of coffee abandoned on a side table. Your home is beautiful, I said, meaning it. I designed most of it myself. Come, I thought we'd eat on the terrace. The view is better outside. He led me through the house to a spacious terrace overlooking the city. A table was set for 2, candles already lit, soft music playing from hidden speakers. It was romantic in a way that made my guard go up immediately. Before you ask, Elio said, reading my expression, this isn't a seduction. Or not just a seduction. I wanted you to be comfortable, to see me in my space, to understand that I'm more than just the man you met in the bar. We sat, and he poured wine with the practiced ease of someone who did this often. For a few minutes we just ate, the silence comfortable rather than tense. The food was incredible, some kind of fish I couldn't identify prepared with herbs and lemon. Did you cook this? I asked, surprised. He smiled. I had it catered. I'm competent in the kitchen, but not at this level. I wanted tonight to be special. Why? Because I'm about to tell you things that might make you hate me, or fear me more than you already do. And I wanted you to have at least one good memory of me, just in case. My appetite vanished. That's not ominous at all. Ask your questions, Clara. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you the truth. I set down my fork, met his gaze across the candlelight. Okay. Are you a criminal? That depends on your definition of criminal. He didn't look away, didn't flinch. I run a legitimate import-export business. Everything I do is technically legal, properly licensed, taxed appropriately. But I also operate in gray areas. I facilitate transactions that other companies won't touch. I maintain relationships with people who exist outside the law. So legally, no, I'm not a criminal. Morally? He shrugged. That's more complicated. The men who tried to take Nina, who are they? Competitors. There's a man named Noel who wants control of the harbor operations. He's been making moves against me for the past 6 months, trying to undermine my business relationships, threatening my associates. Going after you was his way of sending a message. What kind of message? That I care about something. That I have a weakness. His jaw tightened. In my world, caring about someone is dangerous. It gives your enemies leverage. Then why did you pursue me, if I'm such a liability? He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming against his wine glass. Because for the first time in years, I felt something other than obligation or strategy. Because you looked at me like I was just a man, not a power to be feared or exploited. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it's like to want something just for myself, not because it serves some larger purpose. The raw honesty in his words made my chest tight. I don't know how to live in your world, Elio. I don't know the rules, the dangers, how to protect myself or the people I care about. I know. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. That's why I want to teach you. Not to control you, Clara. To protect you. To give you the tools you need to survive if something happens to me. If something happens to you? Fear spiked through me. Are you in danger? Always. He said it calmly, like discussing the weather. Men like Noel would love to see me disappear. It's the nature of what I do, the world I operate in. But I'm very good at surviving, Clara. I've been doing it for a long time. I pulled my hand from his, suddenly needing distance. This is insane. Everything about this is insane. I should walk away, take my chances, hope that your enemies lose interest. You could. He leaned back in his chair, watching me carefully. And maybe they would lose interest. Or maybe Noel would grab you anyway, use you to draw me out, hurt you just to prove he could. I can't guarantee your safety if you're not under my protection. So I'm trapped. You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? I stood up, moving to the terrace railing, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere down there was my apartment, my job, my normal life. So close, and yet completely unreachable. From where I'm standing, it feels an awful lot like a cage. A beautiful cage, but still a cage. I heard him stand, felt him move behind me. He didn't touch me, but his presence was warm at my back. I know I've taken your freedom, he said quietly. I know that's unforgivable. But Clara, the moment you walked into my world, the moment people saw us together, your freedom was already compromised. Whether you're with me or not, you're now a person of interest to my enemies. At least with me, you have protection, resources, a fighting chance. I turned to face him, tears blurring my vision. I just wanted to feel something. One night of being reckless, of doing something crazy. And now my whole life is upside down. I know. He raised his hand slowly, giving me time to pull away, and wiped a tear from my cheek with his thumb. And I'm sorry, but I can't undo what's been done. I can only move forward and keep you safe while I do it. What if I hate you for this? Then you hate me. His voice was steady, accepting. But you'll be alive to hate me. And that's what matters. We stood there for a long moment, me crying softly, him offering silent comfort. Finally, I asked the question that had been haunting me since that first lunch. What happens now? To us? To this? To whatever we're doing? That depends on you. He stepped back slightly, giving me space. You can stay at a distance. Let me protect you from afar while you maintain your normal life as much as possible. Or you can choose to be part of this, to learn my world, to stand beside me rather than behind me. Either way, I'll keep you safe. But one option gives you agency, power, understanding. The other keeps you in the dark. If I choose to learn your world, what does that mean? It means I teach you how to read people, how to identify threats, how to navigate the gray areas where I operate. It means you meet my associates, understand my business, become someone people respect in your own right, not just as my weakness. It means becoming a partner, Clara. Not just someone I protect, but someone who can protect themselves. The offer was tempting in a way I hadn't expected. Not to be passive and protected, but active and capable. Not a pawn, as Nina had said, but a player. And if something happens to you? I asked. If Noel or someone else succeeds? Then you'll have the knowledge and resources to protect yourself and the people you care about. You won't be helpless. I looked out at the city again, thinking about the choice in front of me. I could hide, minimize my exposure, hope that eventually this would all blow over. Or I could walk forward into the darkness, eyes open, and learn to survive there. Teach me, I said finally. Show me your world, all of it. Elio's smile was slow and satisfied. Good. We start tomorrow. The next 3 months were an education unlike anything I'd experienced. Elio was a patient teacher, introducing me to his world in careful layers, never overwhelming me, but always pushing me just slightly beyond my comfort zone. I learned to read body language, to spot the subtle tells that indicated someone was lying or uncomfortable or planning something hostile. I learned the names and faces of Elio's key associates, understanding the complex web of relationships that kept his business running. I learned which restaurants were safe meeting places and which were owned by competitors. I learned to carry myself differently, to project confidence I didn't always feel. But I also learned about Elio himself, the man behind the reputation. He'd grown up in Brazil, the son of a shipping clerk who'd worked himself to death trying to provide for his family. Elio had been 17 when his father died, leaving him responsible for his mother and 3 younger siblings. He'd started in the harbor doing the same work his father had done, but he'd been smarter, more ambitious. He'd seen inefficiencies in the system and fixed them. He'd made connections with the right people, and slowly, carefully, he'd built an empire that was technically legal, but existed in the spaces between the law. I'm not a saint, he'd told me one night, sitting in his study with whiskey and quiet music. I've done things I'm not proud of, hurt people who threatened my family, my business. But I've never pretended to be anything other than what I am. I'd learned to accept that duality. The man who could be ruthless in business negotiations, but who also remembered that I preferred my coffee with cream and 2 sugars. Who could order security details with cold efficiency, but who held me gently when I woke from nightmares about Nina being taken. Nina herself had become an unexpected ally in all of this. After the initial fear had worn off, she'd become fascinated by the mechanics of Elio's world. She'd befriended Dario, charming him with questions about security protocols and threat assessment. She'd even started dating one of the men assigned to protect her, much to my shock and Elio's amusement. What can I say? She'd laughed when I confronted her about it. Leon's smart, protective, and he doesn't lie about what he is. In this weird world we're living in now, that's refreshing. My mother was harder to manage. I'd flown her up for a visit, needing to explain at least part of what was happening before she heard it from someone else. I'd introduced her to Elio as my boyfriend, kept things vague about his business, and watched her fall under his considerable charm offensive. He's very intense, she'd said afterward, her eyes knowing. But he looks at you like you're the most important thing in his world. That's rare, Clara. Don't take it for granted. Work had been the biggest casualty of my new life. I'd quit my job at Creative Solutions after realizing I couldn't maintain the pretense of normalcy. Elio had offered to set me up in business, but I'd insisted on something legitimate, something that was mine. I'd started consulting for small businesses on their marketing strategies, building a client base that had nothing to do with his world. But the biggest change had been in my relationship with Elio himself. We'd moved past the initial fear and attraction into something deeper, more complicated. I still didn't fully trust him, might never fully trust him, but I understood him now. Understood what drove him, what he valued, what lines he wouldn't cross. And he'd kept his promise about protection. Noel had made 2 more attempts to get to me, both thwarted before they even got close. Elio had been methodical in his response, systematically dismantling Noel's operations, cutting off his resources, turning his allies against him, not through violence as I'd feared, but through the same strategic business moves he used every day. He'll make one final push, Elio had warned me 3 weeks ago. Desperate men do desperate things. I need you to be extra careful until this is resolved. I'd been careful. I'd followed all the protocols, maintained my security detail, stayed alert. But I'd also gotten complacent, comfortable, used to the rhythms of this new life, which was why I didn't think twice when Dario called and said there'd been a change of plans, that Elio wanted to meet me at the office instead of at home. Why I got into the car without checking the driver's face carefully. Why I didn't notice we were taking the wrong route until it was too late. The man driving wasn't Dario. I realized it just as he turned onto a side street I didn't recognize, just as the doors locked with an ominous click. "Where's Dario?" I asked, my voice remarkably steady despite the fear flooding my system. "Delayed." The driver's accent was thick, unfamiliar. "Mr. Alves sent me to collect you." I pulled out my phone, but it was dead, completely drained, though I'd charged it fully that morning. Someone had remotely killed it, I realized with cold clarity. Cut off my communication. I did exactly what Elio had taught me. I stayed calm, assessed my options, looked for opportunities. The driver was alone, which meant this was either a kidnapping, or he was taking me somewhere for a handoff. Either way, I had more leverage in the car than I would wherever we were going. When we stopped at a red light, I made my move. I yanked the door handle hard enough to break the child lock, rolled out onto the street, and ran. Behind me, I heard the car door slam, heard footsteps giving chase. I ducked into an alley, my heart hammering, my mind cycling through everything Elio had taught me about evading pursuit in an urban environment. Keep moving, stay in populated areas, find a safe space. I emerged onto a busier street, saw a coffee shop with people inside, and ducked through the door. The barista looked up, startled by my breathless entrance. "Please," I gasped. "Can I use your phone? It's an emergency." She handed it over without question, and I dialed the only number I'd memorized. Elio's personal line, the one that bypassed all his assistants and went directly to him. He answered on the first ring. "Who is this?" "It's me." My voice shook despite my best efforts. "Someone grabbed me. I got away. I'm at a coffee shop on..." I looked around frantically for a street sign. Maple and 3rd. "Clara." The relief in his voice was palpable. "Are you hurt?" "No. But Elio, they killed my phone remotely. They knew your protocols." "I know. Dario's been compromised. I'm handling it." I heard him moving, giving rapid orders to people around him. "Stay in the coffee shop. Don't go outside. Leon is 2 minutes away. Do you trust him?" "Yes." "Good. He'll bring you to me. Clara, I need you to stay calm for 2 more minutes. Can you do that?" "I can do that." True to his word, Leon appeared exactly 2 minutes later, Nina behind him looking terrified and fierce in equal measure. She ran to me, pulling me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "When Leon said you'd been grabbed, I thought..." She pulled back, checking me over for injuries. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine. I got away. I managed a shaky smile. Elio taught me well. Leon cleared his throat. We need to move. Boss wants you somewhere secure until he can clean this up. The drive to Elio's home took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Leon explained in short, efficient sentences. Dario had been compromised, paid off by Noel to provide information about my routines, my security details. The driver had been one of Noel's men, under orders to take me to a warehouse in the harbor district. Elio's already moving on Noel, Leon said, his eyes on the road. This was the final push he predicted. Noel just signed his own death warrant. Elio won't... I couldn't finish the sentence. Wouldn't kill Noel. Because I wasn't sure that was true. Wasn't sure what Elio was capable of when someone threatened what he valued. When we arrived at his home, Elio met us at the door. For the first time since I'd known him, his control was cracked. He pulled me into his arms with bruising force, burying his face in my hair, his whole body shaking with suppressed emotion. You're safe, he murmured, more to himself than to me. You're safe. I'm safe, I confirmed, holding him just as tightly. I did what you taught me. He pulled back just enough to frame my face with his hands, his eyes searching mine. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have known Dario was turned. I should have been more careful. You couldn't have known. Elio, this isn't on you. It is. Everything is on me. His voice was raw with something I'd never heard before. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Every threat, every danger, it all comes back to me. To what I am, what I do. And you got caught in it because I was selfish enough to keep you when I should have let you go. I realized then what he was doing. He was pulling away, trying to protect me by removing himself from my life. Don't. I gripped his wrists, holding his hands against my face. Don't you dare try to push me away now. I chose this, Elio. I chose to learn your world, to stay beside you. You don't get to make that choice for me. Clara, no. Listen to me. I pulled his hands down but didn't let go. I'm terrified. I won't pretend I'm not, but I'm not running. I'm not hiding. You taught me to be strong, to fight, to survive. Don't take that away from me now by deciding I'm too fragile to handle the danger. Something shifted in his expression. Not relief, not yet, but hope. You're sure? I'm sure. I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. Finish this. Deal with Noel. Do whatever you have to do. And then come back to me. Because I'll be waiting. His kiss was desperate, claiming, full of everything he couldn't say out loud. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, our breath mingling in the small space between us. I love you, he said quietly. I should have told you before. I love you, Clara, more than I've ever loved anything or anyone. My heart stuttered at the confession, at the vulnerability in his voice. I love you too, even though you're impossible and dangerous and you've completely upended my entire life. I love you. He smiled. Then, really smiled, the expression transforming his face from dangerous to beautiful. When this is over, we're going to talk about our future. Really talk about it. Figure out what this can be, what we can build together. I'd like that. Leon cleared his throat from the doorway. Boss, we need to move. Knowles made his position known. Elio's expression hardened back into the cold mask I'd come to recognize as his business face. He kissed me once more, gentle this time, almost tender. Nina will stay with you. Full security detail. I'll be back before morning. Be careful. Always. He turned to Leon. If anything happens to me, you know what to do. Clara's protected no matter what. Understood, boss. And then he was gone, moving with Leon toward the waiting cars, toward whatever final confrontation awaited him with Noel. Nina appeared at my side, slipping her hand into mine. He'll be okay, she said softly. He survived worse than this. I know. I squeezed her hand. But that doesn't make the waiting easier. We moved inside, into Elio's study where I'd spent so many evenings learning about his world. I curled up on the couch, Nina beside me, and waited for the man I loved to come back safely. The night stretched endlessly ahead, full of fear and hope, and the knowledge that nothing would ever be simple or safe. But I'd made my choice. I'd chosen this life, this man, this dangerous world that had claimed me the moment I'd kissed him on a dare. Now I could only wait and see what consequences that choice would bring. Dawn was breaking when Elio finally returned. I'd fallen asleep on the couch despite my best efforts to stay awake, and I jolted upright at the sound of the door opening. He stood in the entrance to the study, still wearing the same clothes from the night before, looking exhausted and somehow lighter, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. It's over, he said simply. I was across the room in seconds, launching myself into his arms. He caught me easily, holding me tight, his face pressed into my hair. We stood like that for a long moment, not speaking, just breathing each other in. Is he dead? I finally asked, not sure what answer I wanted to hear. No. Elio pulled back slightly to look at me. I'm not a killer, Clara. Not unless there's absolutely no other choice. Noel is in custody. Federal custody. It turns out he'd been involved in some genuinely illegal activities, things even I won't touch. I simply made sure the right authorities had the evidence they needed. Relief washed through me. I hadn't wanted to love a murderer, even if I'd been prepared to. So it's really over? The immediate threat is over. There will always be other Noels, other men who want what I have. But I've sent a message. You're protected by me, and anyone who touches you answers to me. That carries weight in my world. Good. I leaned up and kissed him, soft and sweet, a kiss of greeting and relief and promise. When I pulled back, I said, now we need to talk about our future, like you promised. He smiled, tired but genuine. Let me shower first. I smell like warehouses and bad decisions. 20 minutes later, we sat on his terrace watching the sun fully rise over the city. He'd changed into soft pants and a t-shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. I'd raided his kitchen and made coffee, and we sat close together, my feet in his lap while he absently massaged them. I want you to move in with me, he said without preamble. Not because I'm controlling, or because I need to watch you, but because I want to come home to you every day. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you. My heart raced at the suggestion. That's a big step. It is, and I know it's fast. We've only known each other for a few months. But Clara, I've lived a long time without feeling this way about anyone. Now that I have you, I don't want to waste time pretending we're taking things slow when we both know we're already all in. He was right. We'd passed slow and cautious the moment I'd kissed him in that bar. What about my consulting work? My independence? I'd never ask you to give that up. In fact, I'd like to help you grow it if you'll let me. Not by using my connections to force clients to hire you, but by providing the resources and support you need to build something you're proud of. Your business, your success, completely separate from mine. The offer was thoughtful, respectful of my need for autonomy. What about when your business intersects with my life? When the danger comes back? Then we face it together. I'll teach you everything I know, make you as safe as I can make anyone in my world. But Clara, I can't promise there won't be risks. Can't promise it will always be safe. I can only promise that I'll do everything in my power to protect you while still respecting your agency. I thought about my life before Elio. The predictability, the safety, the soul-crushing boredom of it all. Then I thought about the past few months. The fear, yes, but also the excitement, the growth, the feeling of being truly alive for the first time in years. Okay, I said. I'll move in, but on one condition. His eyebrows rose. What condition? You keep teaching me, not just about security and protection, but about your business, the legitimate parts. I want to understand what you do, how you do it, maybe even help, if there's a way for me to contribute that doesn't compromise my own work. His smile was slow and warm. I'd like that, having a partner, someone to share all of it with, not just my bed, but my life. Partners, then. I extended my hand formally, making him laugh. He took my hand, but instead of shaking it, he pulled me into his lap. Partners, he agreed, before kissing me thoroughly. The next few weeks were a blur of moving, of merging my small life with his much larger one. Nina helped me pack, making jokes about how I was moving up in the world in the most literal sense. My mother called to give her blessing, having clearly sensed that this was more than just a casual boyfriend. Even my consulting business saw an unexpected boost, not from Elio's interference, but from my own growing confidence and competence. I learned the rhythms of Elio's household, met more of his associates, attended business dinners where I could finally understand the complex negotiations happening beneath polite conversation. I was learning to read his world, to navigate it with increasing confidence. But the biggest change was in how we were together. Without the constant threat hanging over us, without the fear and uncertainty, we could simply be. Could have lazy Sunday mornings in bed, could cook dinner together, could talk late into the night about everything and nothing. I learned that Elio was an insomniac who often woke at 3 a.m. and worked in his study. I learned that he had a dry sense of humor that only emerged when he was truly relaxed. I learned that he was surprisingly sentimental, keeping every note I left him, remembering the small details of my day. And he learned me, my routines, my preferences, my fears and dreams, and all the complicated feelings I had about the life we were building together. 6 months after I'd kissed him on a dare, Elio took me back to Onyx, the bar where it had all started. We sat in the same VIP section, at the same table, and he ordered whiskey while I had a vodka cranberry. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his fingers intertwined with mine on the table. That night, the kiss, everything that came after. I thought about it honestly. The fear, the danger, the complete upheaval of everything I'd thought my life would be. But also the love, the growth, the feeling of being truly seen and valued. "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. It was terrifying and reckless and completely changed my life. But it also woke me up, Clara, made me feel alive again. And it brought me to you." "Good." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Because I have a question to ask you." My breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a ring that was somehow both elegant and understated. Not ostentatious, but clearly expensive. The kind of ring that suggested permanence and commitment, and forever. "I know this is fast," he said, his voice steady, but his hands shaking slightly. "I know we've only known each other for 6 months. But Clara, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You challenged me, surprised me, refused to be intimidated by who I am or what I do. You chose to stay when you could have run. You chose to learn instead of hide. You chose me, over and over again, and I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you back." He slid from the booth, kneeling beside the table in front of everyone in the bar. "Clara, will you marry me?" I should have been surprised, should have asked for more time, for space to think. But I'd made my choice months ago, when I'd decided to stay for that first lunch, when I'd let him teach me his world, when I'd moved into his home and his life. "Yes," I said, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Yes, I'll marry you." The bar erupted in applause. Nina, who I now realized had been strategically seated nearby with Leon, rushed over to hug me. Other people I'd come to know through Elio offered congratulations, genuine warmth in their eyes. As Elio slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Bored, frustrated, going through the motions of a life that didn't fit anymore. She'd made a reckless choice that night, accepting a dare to kiss a dangerous stranger. And that choice had led her here, to love and danger and a future that was anything but predictable, to a man who'd trapped her at first, but who now gave her wings, to a life that was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I looked at Elio, at the man I'd chosen and who'd chosen me back. His eyes were soft with emotion, his smile genuine and warm. In this moment, in this bar where everything had started, I could finally see our future stretching ahead. Not safe, never safe, but real and full and absolutely worth every risk. "I love you," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Even though you're impossible." "I love you too," he replied, pulling me close. "My brave, reckless Clara, thank you for kissing me that night. Thank you for never letting me go." As he kissed me, surrounded by the cheers of friends and associates and the pulsing music of the bar, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. The dangerous choice, the reckless choice, the choice that had upended my entire life, but also the choice that had finally, truly, made me feel alive. The wedding was small, intimate, nothing like what I'd imagined as a girl dreaming of my perfect day. But then again, nothing about my life with Elio resembled any dream I'd ever had. It was better and more terrifying and infinitely more real. We married on the terrace of his home, the same place where he'd proposed 6 months earlier. Just 30 guests, mostly his trusted associates and the few people from my old life who'd accepted this new reality. Nina stood beside me as my maid of honor, wearing a smile that was equal parts happiness and disbelief. My mother cried quietly in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief Elio had thoughtfully provided. "You look beautiful," Elio whispered as I reached him at the makeshift altar. The city spread out behind him like a glittering promise. He wore a midnight blue suit that made his dark eyes even more intense, and for a moment I couldn't breathe, overwhelmed by the reality of what we were about to do. "You don't look so bad yourself," I managed, my voice shaking with emotion. The ceremony was brief, the words traditional, but weighted with everything we'd been through. When the officiant asked if I took Elio as my husband, for better or worse, I thought about everything that phrase meant in our context. The danger, the fear, the moments when worse had nearly destroyed us. But also the growth, the love, the way he'd taught me to be stronger than I'd ever imagined. "I do," I said, my voice clear and certain. Elio's vows were simple, delivered in that low voice that still made my pulse race. "Clara, you walked into my life when I'd stopped believing I deserved anything good. You challenged everything I thought I knew about myself, about what I could have, about what kind of man I could be. I promised to protect you, to respect you, to give you the freedom to be yourself even while keeping you safe. I promised to love you until my last breath and beyond." When he slid the wedding band onto my finger, his hands were steady, but I could see the emotion in his eyes, the vulnerability he showed so rarely. "You may kiss your bride." The kiss was tender, reverent, nothing like that first impulsive kiss in the bar that had started everything. This was a kiss of promise, of commitment, of choosing each other with full knowledge of what that choice meant. The reception that followed was elegant and surprisingly joyful. I danced with Elio, with Nina, with my mother who whispered that she'd never seen me so happy. I watched as Elio's world and my world mingled, finding common ground in celebration. Late in the evening, as guests began to depart, Leon approached with an envelope. His expression was serious, professional, so different from the relaxed man I'd seen laughing with Nina earlier. "Boss, this just came in. The source is verified." Elio took the envelope, his jaw tightening as he read whatever was inside. I'd learned to read his micro-expressions, the tiny shifts that indicated danger or concern. This was both. "What is it?" I asked quietly, moving to his side. He hesitated, that old instinct to shield me from his world warring with the partnership we'd promised each other. Finally, he handed me the document. It was an intelligence report, professionally formatted, detailing movements of a man named Vittorio Castellan. The name was unfamiliar to me, but the implications were clear. He was positioning himself to move against Elio's operations, building alliances, gathering resources. "Another Noel," I said, my stomach sinking. "Worse than Noel." Elio's voice was flat, controlled. "Vittorio is smarter, better connected. He's been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment." "And our wedding is the right moment?" I understood immediately. "He thinks you're distracted, vulnerable." He's not entirely wrong. Elio's hand found mine, our fingers interlacing. "For the first time in my life, I have something to lose that truly terrifies me. Not my business, not my reputation. You." I thought about running, about the brief flare of fear that maybe I'd made a terrible mistake, binding myself legally and emotionally to a man whose world would always include threats like this. But then I looked at Elio, really looked at him, and saw not just the dangerous man but the one who'd kept every promise he'd ever made to me. "So what do we do?" I asked, using "we" deliberately. Something shifted in his expression, pride mixed with love. "We handle it. Together." Over the next few weeks, I learned just how deep Elio's world truly went. We spent long evenings in his study, him teaching me to read intelligence reports, to understand the complex web of alliances and rivalries that governed his industry. I met with his financial advisors, learned about the legitimate businesses that formed the foundation of his empire, began to understand how money moved through his various enterprises. But I also carved out my own space in this world. My consulting business was growing, and I'd started taking on clients who operated in the gray areas Elio knew so well. Businesses that needed someone who understood both legitimate marketing and the unspoken rules of operating in morally ambiguous spaces. "You're good at this," Nina observed one afternoon as we reviewed a proposal I'd drafted for a client. She'd become my unofficial business partner, her street-smart instincts complementing my strategic thinking. "You've found a way to be part of his world without being consumed by it." She was right. I was Clara Alves now, wife of Elio Alves, but I was also still myself. Still the woman who'd kissed a dangerous man on a dare, still reckless enough to embrace uncertainty, still determined enough to build something of my own. The threat from Vittorio came to a head 3 months after our wedding. Intelligence suggested he was planning to move against one of Elio's shipping operations, using violence that would draw unwanted attention and potentially destroy years of carefully built relationships. "We need to neutralize him before he makes his move," Leon said during a strategy meeting in Elio's office. I'd become a regular presence at these meetings, my perspective valued for its outsider clarity. "How?" I asked, studying the maps and documents spread across the table. "He's got political protection, financial resources, and enough loyal people that taking him down won't be simple." "It never is." Elio's voice was tired. He'd been working around the clock, trying to find a solution that didn't involve the kind of violence he'd worked so hard to move away from. I stared at the documents, my mind working through possibilities. Then something clicked. What if we don't take him down? What if we make him irrelevant instead? All eyes turned to me. I felt a flutter of nervousness but pushed through it. Look at his operation. He's built it on being the aggressive alternative to you, the one willing to do what you won't. But what if we expose that his aggression is actually costing his clients money, that his methods, while flashy, are inefficient? Elio leaned forward, interested. Go on. We have access to industry data, shipping records, efficiency reports. What if we quietly make sure his potential clients know exactly how much his approach costs them? Not through direct confrontation, but through information. Let the market decide he's not worth the risk. Leon looked skeptical, but Elio was nodding slowly. It's brilliant. It's using his own strategy against him. He's been painting me as weak, outdated. We paint him as reckless, expensive. It won't be immediate, I cautioned. This is a long-game strategy. But it's sustainable. Elio's smile was genuine, proud. And it doesn't require violence or threats, just information and patience. The strategy worked. Over the following months, Vittorio's support slowly eroded as clients realized the true cost of his methods. He made increasingly desperate moves, each one confirming the narrative we'd carefully constructed. By the time he finally withdrew, defeated by economics rather than force, Elio's position was stronger than ever. You've changed how I do business, Elio said one night as we lay in bed, the city lights filtering through the curtains. Before you, I would have met force with force, would have escalated until someone got hurt. But you showed me there's another way. I just asked questions, I protested. Looked at the situation differently. Exactly. He pulled me closer, his warmth surrounding me. You see possibilities I never would have considered. You make me better, Clara. Not just happier, but actually better. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, accepting a dare in a bar, thinking it was just one reckless night. I'd had no idea that kiss would lead here, to this life, this love, this strange hybrid existence between his dangerous world and my determination to remain myself. I'm pregnant, I said suddenly, the words I'd been holding for a week finally escaping. Elio went absolutely still. Then he was moving, turning on the bedside lamp, his eyes searching mine. What? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out last Tuesday, but I wanted to wait until the Vittorio situation was resolved before telling you. His hand moved to my stomach, flat and gentle. You've known for a week and didn't tell me? You had enough to worry about. I didn't want to distract you. Clara. His voice was choked with emotion. You could never be a distraction. You're everything. He kissed me then, tender and reverent. We're going to have a baby. Are you happy? I asked, suddenly nervous. We'd talked about children in abstract terms, someday in the future, but this was real and immediate. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He was crying, I realized with shock. Elio, who I'd seen face down threats and enemies without flinching, was crying because we were going to have a child. Terrified, yes, but so incredibly happy. The pregnancy changed things in ways I hadn't expected. Elio became even more protective, his security protocols intensifying until I had to remind him that I needed to breathe, to live, not exist in a bubble. But he also became softer, more present, making sure he was home for dinner every night, his hand constantly finding my growing belly. Nina threw me a baby shower that brought together the two halves of my life in ways that were sometimes awkward, but ultimately beautiful. My mother bonded with Elena, Elio's housekeeper, over baby advice. My former co-workers from Creative Solutions mingled with the wives of Elio's associates, finding common ground in motherhood and managing complicated men. "You've built something remarkable," my mother said, watching Elio hold court with a group of guests, his hand never far from me. "Not just a marriage, but a whole new world that's uniquely yours." She was right. This wasn't his world or my world anymore. It was ours, carefully constructed from pieces of both, held together by love and compromise, and the determination to make something good from an impulsive choice. The baby came on a Tuesday in March, arriving 3 weeks early with the same reckless timing that seemed to characterize my entire relationship with Elio. We named her Sophia, after Elio's grandmother, a woman he'd loved fiercely, and who'd taught him that strength and gentleness weren't opposites but complements. Holding her for the first time, seeing Elio's face as he cradled our daughter with infinite care, I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. All of it, the fear and the danger and the love and the joy, it had all led to this moment. "She's perfect," Elio whispered, his finger tracing Sophia's tiny hand. "Just like her mother." "I'm not perfect," I protested, exhausted and emotional and overwhelmingly happy. "You are to me." He looked up, his eyes bright with tears. "You took a chance on a dangerous man in a bar. You could have walked away 100 times, but you stayed. You fought for us, for this. You're the bravest person I know." Nina visited the next day, bringing flowers and the knowing smile of someone who'd watched this entire unlikely journey unfold. "So, how does it feel?" she asked, perched on the edge of my hospital bed. "Being married to a reformed Mafia boss with a baby and a thriving business?" "Exhausting," I admitted, watching Elio pace the room with Sophia, his large hands cradling her with surprising gentleness. "Terrifying. Perfect." "You know what I think?" Nina's voice was soft, reflective. "I think you saved each other. He gave you a reason to be brave again, to feel alive. And you gave him a reason to be better, to build something beyond power and control." She was right. We had saved each other. Two people who'd been existing rather than living, brought together by a dare and bound by choice. 5 years after that first kiss, I stood in Elio's office, looking at the wall he'd dedicated to our family. Photos of our wedding, of Sophia's first steps, of the son who'd come 2 years after her, of the life we'd built from reckless beginnings. "Thinking about that night?" Elio asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Always." I leaned back into his warmth. "Do you ever regret it? Pursuing me? Bringing me into your world?" "Never." His answer was immediate, certain. "You're the best decision I never meant to make." I laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. I mean it." His hands framed my face, that gesture that had become so familiar, so cherished. That night, when you walked up to me with your heart pounding and your chin up, defiant and terrified and so beautiful, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Like maybe there was more to life than just surviving, controlling, protecting. Like maybe I could actually live. "You taught me the same thing." I kissed him softly. How to be strong without being hard. How to be careful without being afraid. How to build a life that's both safe and exciting. Through the office windows, I could see the harbor, ships moving in and out with cargo that Elio's businesses had facilitated. Legal, legitimate, built on relationships and reputation rather than fear. He'd transformed his empire over the past 5 years, using the strategies I'd helped develop, creating something he could be proud of, something he could pass on to our children without shame. My consulting business had grown too, my client list now including some of the city's most successful entrepreneurs, people who valued my unique perspective on navigating complex business landscapes. I'd published a book on ethical business practices in morally gray industries, becoming a sought-after speaker and consultant. We'd built this together. A life that honored both who we were and who we wanted to become. "Mama." Sophia's voice carried from the hallway, followed by the thunder of small feet. She burst into the office, her dark hair flying, Elio's eyes in a face that had my features. "Uncle Leon says dinner is ready, and we're having your favorite." Behind her, our son Marco toddled in, barely 3 years old, but already showing signs of his father's determined personality. Elio scooped him up with one arm, pulling Sophia close with the other. "Well then," he said, his voice warm with contentment. "We shouldn't keep Uncle Leon waiting." As we walked as a family toward dinner, surrounded by the people we loved and trusted, I thought about the woman I'd been that night in the bar. Young, reckless, desperate for something to make her feel alive. She'd gotten everything she'd wanted, and so much more than she could have imagined. The kiss that had started as a dare had become a promise. The dangerous man had become my partner, my love, my home. The terrifying world I'd been pulled into had become mine, shaped and reshaped until it fit us both. Was it perfect? No. There were still moments of fear, still threats that occasionally emerged, still the constant awareness that loving someone like Elio meant accepting a life that would never be entirely safe or predictable. But it was real, it was ours, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. As we sat down to dinner, Elio's hand found mine under the table, our fingers intertwining in that familiar gesture of connection and commitment. Across from us, Sophia chattered about her day while Marco demanded more breadsticks. Leon and Nina exchanged amused glances, their own relationship having blossomed into marriage last year. This was my family. Unconventional, complicated, built from unlikely beginnings and sustained by fierce love and constant choice. "What are you smiling about?" Elio asked, his thumb stroking the inside of my wrist. "Everything," I said honestly. "Absolutely everything." And I meant it. Every reckless choice, every moment of fear, every hard-won victory and tender moment of peace. All of it had brought me here, to this table, this family, this life. The most dangerous man in the bar had become the safest place in my world. And I, the woman brave or foolish enough to kiss him on a dare, had become the keeper of his heart. It was more than I'd ever dared to hope for, and it was just the beginning.